Hey, this is Lynn. Greetings. And today I am here with Michelle Sandlin.
Hello.
She is a someone who has gone through the cancer journey and come out the other side, and she is here to share her experiences. And there might be some things that you find going, "Ooh, I could never do that," or things that you go, "Oh, that's a really cool idea. Maybe I could do that too." And she's just here to give us her perspective on what her journey was like and how it went for her. So, welcome, Michelle.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah. So, for you, what did it feel like when you got the cancer diagnosis?
Yeah, people ask me that question all the time, and it's a very difficult question to answer because in a way you're feeling everything and nothing at the same time. It's almost a numb feeling, but yet your head is spinning, out of control. It's a very shocking thing to hear, and it's like everything goes quiet, but there's all this noise at the same time. It's the dichotomy of everything you can ever imagine. And in my case, I had had a biopsy on a Friday, and I had to kind of sweat out the diagnosis all through the weekend plus the Monday. But to be honest with you, the radiologist, when she was reviewing my ultrasound that I had that led up to the biopsy, she already threw that word out there to me, cancer, which, absolutely floored me. But the moment she said the word in my head, I already had it. I mean, that's just
Mm.
the way, I operate. So, I was anticipating that phone call that Tuesday morning, and I was not surprised when she said, what she said. But, the thing that really got me, and I think this is probably not unique to everyone, but I felt like I had been living my life the way you're meant to do things in terms of my health and just, having a healthy lifestyle. I was working out 6 days a week. I'm a big, Peloton junkie. That's been a big part of my journey. I didn't drink, I didn't smoke, I didn't do drugs. I was a healthy weight. I was doing all the things that you're supposed to do to be healthy, and I learned really quickly that cancer don't care about any of that. It makes zero difference to cancer, and it takes a little while to kind of turn that corner to get away from what did I do wrong in and getting to that point of, I guess, acceptance of, okay, this is what has happened and there's not one thing I could have done differently. But getting a diagnosis, anything like that that is life threatening, you you go through everything. I mean, you're planning funerals in your head, you're doing all kinds of stuff that you don't want to be doing, but yet there you are. But yeah, shocking, numb, knees buckling, just a gamut of emotions.
Wow.
So
So, how did your family respond to that?
yeah, so I was actually with my husband when the call came in that Tuesday morning, and we put it on speaker, and we were together, and we're sitting there on the bed together, and I'm looking at him, he's looking at me. We're both in total shock, disbelief, and of course, the radiologist on the phone is keeps saying, "Do you have any questions? Do you have any questions?" Like, yes, I have all the questions, but I don't know what they are. And
Yeah.
I think that's, one of the most difficult things when you get a phone call like that, a diagnosis like that, is you don't have a clue what you should be asking. And I guess I'm such a taskmaster in spirit that my immediate thing was, okay, what do I need to be doing? Who do I need to report to? Who do I need to talk to? What do I need to do? Are we starting chemo today? I'm ready. Let's go. I'm all in. I mean, whatever it was, I was just like, let's check some boxes. So I guess it was 0 to 60 in about nothing flat. And I was immediately in fight mode. And apart from apart from my husband, the next two phone calls were to my brother and to my daughter. And they both had already, they were already both aware that I'd had the biopsy, I'd found a lump in my breast, that whole thing. But even though I had internalized that I felt pretty certain that it probably was cancer, I didn't say so to them because I didn't want it out there. I didn't want it in anybody else's head. My husband knew, but beyond that, no. And I called both of them within 5 minutes of hanging up with the radiologist. And as far as response, you can hear the voices start to crack on the other end of the line. And for me, I was like, okay, no, 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 no. We're not going to cry. There's not going to be any tears. And I really set the tone that first day that this is going to be 100% positivity all the way. I don't want any negativity around me. I don't want any drama. I don't want any toxic people. I mean, I cleaned house and set the rules and said, this is the way it's going to be. And I was very lucky because everybody complied. I was now the boss.
Nice.
So they were like, whatever you need, whatever you want, that's what's going to happen. And, when I guess I announced it to my community on social media, I said the same thing. I tried to set that tone of positivity because I think there's such an inspirational quality to that. Plus there's that, fake it till you make it. I felt if I believed in all the positivity going into it, that there was no way there was going to be anything other than a positive outcome.
Nice.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think setting boundaries is so important to
Yes.
create the experience that you want.
Exactly.
And
exactly.
It's not that there aren't going to be things coming at you out of left field, but
right.
If you establish that boundary and that basis of, from here on out, we're doing things positive.
Yes.
One of somebody that I know, his nephew went through cancer, and the nephew's rule was no one cries in my hospital room.
Yeah.
If you're here and if you've got tears, you go out, because
Yes.
I don't need that in my room with me.
Absolutely.
And,
I was the same way. Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes a huge difference. I mean, it really does. I mean, you get a diagnosis like that, and I mean, you have a couple of choices. You can go get back in the bed, pull the covers up over your head and call it a day and just let that be the thing. But that's not my personality. And I'm like, oh, hell no, this isn't taking me down. Let's go, cancer. I'm ready. Put up your dukes,
And some other people too, it may take them a few days to just
yes,
feel it and internalize it, and then they start looking to, what decisions do I make, how do I create
right,
the team that I want around me.
That's so important.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so, either way is fine.
Yes.
There's
no right or wrong way to do it. You have to do what feels right to you. But, my hope is always that, people who might be going through this or struggling with anything in their life, that they might be able to get little bits and pieces from me and emulate it to help them in whatever they're going through.
Yeah, definitely. So you decided right away what you wanted to do, and what were the things that you brought into your experience that you felt made a difference, or that helped?
Yeah, so that's such a great question. So for me, like I said, I was living this healthy lifestyle. So I wanted to know immediately what my do's and don'ts were. And I wanted to make sure that, number one, I could continue my rigorous workout schedule. And they're like, yes, that's great. We want you to work out. That's wonderful. That's good for you. Walking, riding the Peloton, all of that stuff. But they warned me, once chemo started, the intensity level and your fatigue and everything is going to cause, those things to drop. But do what you can. And I made it a practice of mine that let me go back just a little bit and say that I had 16 rounds of chemo, and it pretty much started right away. I think from diagnosis to chemo, there were maybe 3 weeks in between, just because I had to get through some hurdles. I had to have an MRI, an EKG. They had to put a port in for the infusions. And then we started a once a week chemo schedule that lasted for those first 12 of 16. And so I made it my practice that every morning of chemo, I would get out of bed, I would ride my Peloton until I couldn't ride it anymore, and take a shower and go to chemo. And my whole mentality around that, I mean, I had read it a couple of places and it made sense to me. You know, it's funny when you read something and you're like, this says what I want it to say, so I believe it with all my heart, you know? So I had read that, you know, working out prior to going through chemo kind of prepares your veins for, you know, what's coming next. And I was like, I like that. I'm going with that. Let's do this. And so from the first day that I walked into the infusion center, I had my giant Peloton water bottle, because I'm like all in with Peloton. So I brought my water bottle in, and two of the infusion nurses in the center there came running into me. They're like, oh my gosh, you know, we ride Peloton. We love Peloton. Peloton's so great. And they're like, are you still doing it? I mean, they kept asking me throughout, like, are you really still doing? I'm like, oh yeah, this is a do or die. There's no way around it. And I would say the first infusion that I had of chemotherapy, I was still doing like 45 minutes of, you know, a ride that morning. But by my 16th round of chemo, I was like a sloth trying to, you know, get one pedal to go. And, you know, it was this horrible experience, but I lasted 10 minutes and I was so thankful for those 10 minutes. And so that was something that was, you know, really helpful to me. I learned the practice of meditation. That became a really important thing to me, both during the day and to settle my head down at night. That was a big one because, you know, sleepless nights, that's a big thing too. You sleep a lot, but it doesn't necessarily happen, you know, at nighttime. And you may be taking your biggest sleep of the day between, you know, 2 and 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So you have to adjust a lot of your routine, your schedule, all of this stuff. And so meditation became a big part of it. I increased the protein intake in my diet because that was really necessary based on, you know, everything that was being zapped. But, you know, apart from that, I think it was sharing my journey that helped me a lot, because I really was documenting everything I was doing, both publicly and privately, you know, in the form of journaling and writing. I've been a writer my whole life. I write a lot of poetry. I'm a drummer, you know, all this creativity stuff kind of starts to, it's crazy, dissipate when you're going through chemo, because you have this phenomenon called, you know, chemo brain. And, you know, sometimes I couldn't even make a sentence that made any sense to anybody. I could hear it in my head going, what am I doing? What am I even talking about? And so things that I could do that centered me, like meditation, thinking about my diet, thinking about my exercise, trying to really maintain some sort of routine and order in my day, that helped me immensely. And just sharing that with my community of people via social media kept my spirits up in a way that I just can't even explain to you. I would put a post out there. It would be a raw video of me talking about, you know, whatever I was going through that day, whether it was chemo or fatigue or whatever it was. And boom, 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 I would get all of these wonderful comments on, you know, Facebook or whatever, saying, oh, we're praying for you. We're, you know, your message is so inspirational, or I can't believe you're still working out, or, oh my gosh, I mean, whatever it was. And every single thing I read just warmed my heart. And so I guess it's just knowing that, you know, you're not going through it alone. There are people very near and very far that are in it with you and following you. I know I went off on a long tangent there, but those things really kept me together, you know?
Yeah. So I know a lot of hospitals have support groups for cancer
Yes.
patients. Was that part of your journey,
Yeah.
or
So,
did you prefer the social media?
I preferred the social media because it kept me in contact with people that I know. Um, because part of that is you have this huge feeling of isolation. I mean, you're almost kept in this bubble. And it was still, COVID times, because I was going through this in 2021, 2022. And everybody was like, oh, we don't want you to get COVID. And I wasn't so afraid of COVID. I just was afraid of anything that was going to jeopardize my treatment or delay anything that needed to happen. So I'm very much a rule follower. I'm not a rule breaker. So if they say, isolate, be at home, do that, then that's what I did. But it's very lonely, and so I reached out to people a lot by phone. And I had people drop by, bring me food, bring me hats, bring me books, whatever it was. And so that was great. But it was like at a distance. My husband would go out, the driveway, and I felt like a little kid, waving at my friends, saying hello or whatever. But I mean, that's the thing they don't prepare you for. I mean, it is really isolating. It's really lonely. I spoke to a therapist a couple of times that, I knew, but they do offer support groups. I just felt like it wasn't for me to talk to somebody that didn't know me personally, really. But they put you in touch with all kind of ologists. You won't be at any loss for ologists. You'll have so many in your life. You don't know what to do with them all. But yeah, it's a lot of people that become part of what I call my life team. That's who they were.
Mm-hmm. So so since you said you're a rule follower, did you consult your doctor when you were talking about the exercise or the protein or the stuff like that?
Yeah, so it was definitely a conversation that came about like the very first time I met with my oncologist. I was like, okay, because they ask you a lot of questions about your lifestyle and about your family history and all of this stuff. And that's a big one too. We don't have breast cancer family history. So I'm like, why me? What the heck? What happened? And so it's quite possible that it's a genetic mutation that started in me. Maybe not. One of my parents may have it too. It's hard to know. But anyway, when I first met with them, I volunteered a lot about what I had going on in my life and what I wanted to continue. And really, I wasn't told no for anything. Changes I had to make were really, I guess, around my diet. It was almost a pregnancy diet. They don't want you to eat undercooked,
Mm.
steak, and they don't want you to eat sushi and, things like that. But really, it was about increasing my protein intake, which, isn't a bad thing anyway. And so my diet was pretty much the same. But when I would go get food from restaurants, we did a lot of takeout, bring stuff in. I was told, really eat cooked vegetables, don't eat salads. I'm like, don't eat salads. Who tells you don't eat salads? I really like salads. So I'm like, okay, I'll be making my own salads. So, from that aspect, there wasn't a whole lot of bargaining going on. My oncologist did say to me, we recommend no manicures. And I'm like, check, forget it, because that's a non-negotiable for me. I get my manicure every 2 weeks without fail. So I was like, okay, I understand what you're saying. And I'm like, nope, if I'm going to lose my hair, I'm going to lose my breasts, I at least can have nice nails, right? So I continued to do that. So, but, apart from that, I'm a rule follower.
Nice. Um, so what were the two or three things for you that made the biggest impact?
Well, definitely, working out, because there were so many days when, you can't even get out of bed. And it's like I would lay there and just think, okay, I can will myself out of bed, but you can't. You don't understand how debilitating the fatigue is. And so on the days when I felt well, it was really important to me whether I was on the Peloton or to, put my hat on and get out the door, get some vitamin D, walk the neighborhood, do whatever I needed to do to stay active. The positivity thing, that's that's a huge one. I mean, I cannot underemphasize how important that was, just to keep everything positive around you. The third thing probably is, your community, your tribe, the people that are banging the drum for you. That was huge for me, to be able to not just share, but have the feedback and have the concern, have the love, the friendship, the support, the encouragement that you really need to, just wake up the next day. I mean, I don't know how else to put it. It's invaluable. And I know you said two or three things, but the fourth one really is equally important, and that's the meditation, because it really allowed me to stay grounded and connected with my own breath, and just when my thoughts are racing out of control, to just bring it back in and just breathe. And you don't understand how breathing can be very difficult some days. You're almost hyperventilating from being so overwhelmed with everything that's going on. So
So
that was helpful.
did you do meditation before?
I had started to before, probably a year prior. I had lost my mom 2 years before being diagnosed, and so I was still very much sucked into the grief of all of that. And that's when I turned to exercise. And that later led to the meditation part, because I needed a release from really profound sadness, because her death was not like she was ill or anything like that. It was that middle of the night phone call where, it's done.
Hmm.
And it was a very difficult time. And so, when you get diagnosed with breast cancer, you're like, but I'm doing this, I'm already dealing with everything I can deal with. And so that's why I'm like, yeah, cancer don't care about that either. They don't care anything about what you have going on in your life. So you just have to, figure out how to get through it.
Mm-hmm. So what surprised you most about your time, your journey?
Hmm. That's an interesting question. I think that in my weakest moments, when everything was being zapped from me, from chemotherapy, that I still came out of it feeling stronger. And it's difficult to put into words. It's like it made me fight harder. It made me want to be stronger. It made me just excuse me, just come out the other side. I think an improved version of myself, without sounding weird or anything, but you almost feel like, you've been tested and you faced off against this thing that wanted to kill you. Your own breast wanted to kill you. I mean, try to think about that. And you were triumphant, but you don't want to get too cocky about it, but you're like, yeah, I own you, And I think realizing that, things that you thought were really important, like having a full head of hair, my hair was kind of my thing. Whose thing is not their hair, right? And having to lose that, having to lose, both breasts, having to, have a whole different mindset about so many things, but coming through it and feeling like, yeah, it really didn't take anything from me. It added to me. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. I think
I mean, that's how I feel.
I think a lot of people on the other side have said that to a certain degree that cancer was a gift.
Yeah, I won't go as far as saying that, but I mean it definitely changes you in profound ways, and many of those ways are positive, not negative.
Yeah. Because I was talking to one of the other speakers the other day, and she was mentioning how there are times that would you have ever tried something different had you not had the cancer? You know,
Like
she's
what?
she's a yoga instructor, and
Mm,
a lot of people would never have considered even trying yoga had they not gotten this cancer diagnosis. And now that
right.
they have it and they've tried yoga and they understand the mind body connection better, they're just like, oh wow, I'm
Right.
glad for that so that I could get to this.
Yeah, exactly. I would say that, I've spent a lot more time reading. I'm a writer, so I spend a lot of time writing, but the whole process causes you to slow down in every area of your life. And so I would say that I was reading more, definitely reflecting more, and just realigning priorities that, you know, I wasn't thinking about, before. We're so geared to think about goals, let's, make a goal. And suddenly goals didn't mean anything. It was all about just the priorities, what's important, who's important. And, you asked me about what surprised me about the process, but also what surprised me on kind of a larger, scale is people. And I'll say that in both directions. There were people that showed up for me in some of the biggest ways you could ever imagine that I would never even have thought, that they would even be thinking about me. Where there's other people who were really close in my inner circle, and I would even say they really didn't show up at all, or even in the way that I would have expected them to. And that was good and bad. I mean, good, the people that I'm now closer to that I wasn't, as close to before, but then people that I thought would really be there really weren't there. And that's a difficult thing to wrap your head around, but it tells you where you stand with people, that's for sure. So that's
Yeah,
a gift.
yeah, definitely. So, looking back, is there anything you would have done differently? Or,
I think at the beginning, now this is, hindsight being 2020, is I would have asked more questions and would have asked more, I guess, considered questions, because I've had a lot of time to think about it now. But when you're in it in the moment and things are moving so quickly, and in my case, the tumor was very aggressive. So we had to be very aggressive. There was no time to even let anything sink in. So questions, it was like questions like what, like when, I mean, I didn't even know what the questions were. And so looking back, I would say I would have asked more questions, but I would have had to know what those questions were, to begin with. So that's a
sure.
little bit of a hard one.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Um, so because of your journey, you're doing something.
Yes, I am.
So tell us about that.
Okay, so when I first made my video announcement telling people about my diagnosis, I heard myself say for the first time, that I was doing all these things right, but guess what? Cancer don't care. And those words just kept kind of resonating or reverberating in my head, and my, your head's like this echo chamber. And I was journaling my way through this whole process. I was photographing my way through this process and videoing and sharing everything that I felt that I could. And I realized after I'd gone through, surgeries, I was cancer free, all of this stuff, that I was sort of left with the processing part, because there's no time to do that when you're in the moment. And I just realized, you know what, there's a book here. And my whole goal was trying, like I said earlier, if there's any little, nuggets of wisdom or anything that I can pass on to the next person that can help them in any way, big or small, I want to do that. It's about, paying it forward. There were so many people who, came out to help me and to support me, that I wanted to be able to do that. And the best way for me is my natural way, and that's to write about it. And so I've been working on this memoir called Cancer Don't Care, shockingly enough, that will be coming out. It's my first memoir. It'll be coming out probably August, September, somewhere in that time frame. I mean, it's been a labor of love, but it's interesting because when you're journaling and writing your way, through the journey, you realize you've got all this, great material that you hope can help other people. And that's kind of, where the idea for the book came from. It naturally occurred. I mean, I don't know how else really, to describe that, but I'm really excited about it. And, I was given a couple of 3 different books when I was first diagnosed. A friend or two sent me a book, and then I was given a book in the hospital and all this stuff. And they're very textbooky, kind of books. And I wanted to write from the perspective of, this is what I went through. These are the strategies I use to help me, get through the really difficult, dark days. Because trust me, there are a lot of really difficult, dark days. But trying to maintain that level of positivity that, like I said, a lot of days you have to fake it before you make it. But for me, it continued to lift everything up to a level, but it also brought everybody around me, my husband, my brother, my daughter, brought them up to the same level too. That, if I'm fighting this and I've got this positive attitude, how can they walk around negative around me? It was impossible. So they joined in, and it made such a difference. And I just want to really be able to share that message of positivity, of keep your body moving, and all of these other strategies that I use throughout to, keep things moving in the right direction.
Nice.
So yeah, I'm excited.
That sounds like it's going to be a wonderful book.
Well,
And
thank you.
people
Thank
can
you.
get on your mailing list so that you
Yeah.
can keep them
So
updated.
if they go to my website, they can sign up to be notified about launch date, pre-ordering, all that kind of stuff. And it's michellesandlin.com. That's MICHELLE, S as in Sam, ANDLIN.com.
Yeah.
Did I spell my name right?
I think so.
Oh my gosh. It's like I'm hearing it in my head and I'm talking about chemo brain, which is long gone, but I'm going, did I just spell my name right or wrong? Who knows?
That's okay. We'll have a link in there
Okay,
in here
thank
so
you.
that we can make it easy for them in case they have chemo brain.
There you go. Perfect. Perfect.
Okay, so are there any other words of wisdom that you would like to share before we wrap up?
Uh, I guess just, don't be afraid to ask for help if you need help. And don't be afraid to delegate the things that you really can't do anymore. If you have people around you, whether it's a work situation or a personal situation, you got to let people know what you need. They want to know. They're going to be asking you all the time, what can I do for you? And sometimes it is a rhetorical question, but many times it's not. So don't be afraid to ask for help, to receive help, and let people do things for you. That's really important.
Sounds great. Well, thank you so much for sharing
Yes,
your
thank you for
experience.
having me. I really appreciate it. A lot of fun talking with you. All
Yeah. All right.
right, super.